Every other Monday, your girl Michelle C, aka DJ Make a Move, is a part of another podcast, Opposing Perspectives.
Well, I think that speaks to something that somebody just put in a comment about intentionality and purpose. Like purpose-driven dating, like all that goes away. Like your purpose should be to find a match. It should be to find someone who matches your energy, your level, whatever you want to call it. It shouldn't be to get somebody who's just going to be a trophy wife or to be quiet or to find somebody to take care of you. And I think, Will, to your point, while we're talking about granddaddies having conversations, there's a lot of us, people of color specifically, who don't have any blueprint for marriage in their life cycle, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have parents who got married. That wasn't some people did. We don't do that. So, like, you don't have anybody asking you why you would even be with a person like that. It's what can they do for you? What are they giving you? What are you getting? And not what it should be, which is this going to be a successful relationship for you? And I think when you don't have a lot of people even asking you about marriage or asking you or who have ever thought the concept of marriage, because I think there's a lot of women and men out here don't think they're worthy of that. They don't think that that's something that they can achieve because of whatever, their history, their lifestyle, whatever, but also because they didn't have an example of that. And while, like I said in the beginning, I may not have had the best example of marriage, I at least had it in my framework. And I don't think a lot of people have that.
Well, I think getting married is one thing. Right. That's why I can talk to anybody about getting married. Because getting married is
that's easy.
It's like once it's what I'm saying. It's easy. It's really easy, right? But staying married to somebody, growing with them, making sure we're on the same page, continually having tough conversations is hard to do.
Right.
But if you don't start off the relationship with those tough conversations, which, like, okay, here's a tough conversation. You're long distance with somebody, right? Y'all are together for, I don't know, 6 months. Let's say 3 months. First 3 months of the relationship. Why is no one asking, where the hell are we going to live if we stay together?
Right. When this ends, what's the next plan?
Yeah.
I literally had somebody I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she just found out the guy that she was dating long distance, he got engaged 2 days ago. That's how she found out.
He wasn't
And she said they had been dating for years. And she found out he got engaged because one of the friends, she's really good friends with one of his friends, and found out through social media that her boyfriend is now engaged.
Well, and that goes back to Will's difficult conversations thing. Like, hey, does anybody think that you're with them that isn't me? Is anybody with you that I need to know about? Yes. Where are you going with this? Because you can be a boyfriend-girlfriend situation for decades and nobody get married, and then he comes along and finds who his one is, but you're not having clear communication about your expectations.
How about were you born a woman?
Oh, that's a question we have to ask.
Were you born the man? I'm
sorry.
Well,
and
I'm just saying.
That aside, like other things, like what are your religious beliefs? How do you want to raise kids? Do you want to have kids?
Yeah.
What's your relationship like with your family?
Can you have kids? Right.
What kind of relationships were modeled in your life? Are your parents still married? There's a lot of people that don't know anything about their spouse's family. They don't know anything. Like you can't go into something and not have contextual information to help you make informed decisions. And I just don't understand how people go in and don't ask those difficult questions and then expect to have a successful relationship.
You better say it.
When you meet the parent, it's really giving you a framework of where you're headed a lot of times. Like it's a glimpse into the future.
Yep.
To say, oh, okay. For instance, and this is going to show my shallow side. I was dating a person before, met their parents. I was like, oh, wow, everybody in your family's overweight. So more than likely.
Didn't expect us to take this turn, but carry on.
I'm sorry. But it's like, it's an expectation. Like, I'm not.
Fact you can change, but at least you didn't say everybody in your family's ugly. You know what I'm saying?
That's a fact.
No, Michelle, you can't
I don't
always.
part of this conversation.
Because
I went out.
Some things are in the chemistry. Some things, it's in the biology. So you might, I'm not,
So her whole family
maybe obesity isn't the issue. Maybe we should be asking, like, hey, what's your family medical history?
Medical history, health, all that stuff. And that's what I was ready to say. That's what I was going to say. I'm big on health. Like, I want you to be healthy. Like, some people are set up to be larger. That's not always something you can change. Like I said, some things go down the biology.
You ain't set up the tacos and the pizza, nigga. Like, what you mean set up to be fat? Like,
no, I'm not saying set up to be fat. I said larger. Larger. It's a health issue. I want the people that I'm with to be healthy.
We were
Like, I don't care if you on the thicker side or thinner side. I want you to be healthy because being too thin can be unhealthy too.
Absolutely.
So you have to look at both. Like, I've met people whose parents look like, oh my goodness, I almost used the term I don't think I should use on here, but they're smaller individuals that look like they may have negative habits. So I'm like, is this just genetics, or do you have a habit?
BMI.
And even that, it's like, are you a crackhead or something? Like, is that something I got to look out for? Do you share drugs with your parents? Was drugs normalized in your life? What things were normalized to you that may not be normal to me?
Can we get to another basic question? So we're talking about health, like mental health. Like, can we get to like, how do you handle stress?
First of all, here's some basic questions right here. Because if you watch the show, first of all, don't judge me because my wife watches a lot of freaking reality TV. But I watch it too. I watch it with her. So that show, Ready to Love, right?
Okay.
I love it. I love that show.
Everybody's like 30-something or 40-something in there. And like, one of the things I think is interesting, and I would run if I would, and I have ran from this right here. You're 36, 37 years old, and you've never been in love. You've never been in a relationship. I'm out of there. You know what I'm saying? I'm straight.
Well, they never said they wasn't in love and relationship. They just hadn't found the right one.
No. There was a couple people in there who hadn't been in a relationship. When you say you haven't been in relationships in 15 years or 17 years, and you're 40, that means you haven't been in relationships since you were 23 years old.
That's a lot. A lot has happened to you since then that you need to deal with.
A long time. That means what? You haven't been in a relationship since you've been paying your phone bill. Like that.
Would you prefer them to not have been in like toxic and terrible relationships, or to not have to abstain completely? Like, I think that's a double-edged sword for women, because like
it is. It's a I'm not saying it's slippery slope, but it's gonna be a no for me. I mean, because it's like that's like not having driven for 20 years. I mean, it's
I'm not gonna get in a car with you.
I'm not gonna give it. I don't give you got a license.
I get it.
I don't want to do it.
I wouldn't say it is a no for me, but it's gonna prompt some qualifying questions.
It depends on why the breakup happened. Like, I mean, the person could have died. It could be anything.
Why are you avoiding relationships? Are you still personally working on your own growth despite not having that? Like, I just think there needs to be some questions asked before I completely write you off. Because I think there have been. I mean, but I'm with you. Like, I think there have definitely been men that I know, like in their 40s, who've never been married, don't have kids, and they've never had long-term relationships. And I'm always like, okay, Spidey sense doesn't think that's good. But
that junk is weird. That junk is weird. You like,
if you're over 40 and you've never been married or have kids or whatever, you might have PTSD or something. I don't know.
Well, you could be under 40 and have all those things and still have PTSD, FYI. So there's that. But I mean, I think there's so many things that happen when you abstain from there's reasons, and I think there's a level between like I can say I've been in love, but I can't say that the love has been reciprocated in a way that I find to be like what I'm seeing in my relationship. Right. So like, I think there's a level of like, it's situationally dependent in some cases. And I think if you get to know the person and figure out what those things are, then you can understand if those red flags are because of them or because of their circumstance. And I think that can be a different scenario. But I think the other thing too is like, as somebody who's been married, I have a hard time as a woman dealing with and dating men who have not. Because then it's always like, either this kind of weird comparison happens and they're like, well, I don't want it to be like your first situation, and it's all this like expectation, or they just don't have a baseline for what they want. And I'm like, that don't help me. Like, I know what I want.
They're both difficult if you have a baseline or if you don't. Yeah. Like, there's pros and cons again to all this stuff. And there's difficulties because if you've been married before, it's easy to go in the second time and say, well, I know what I don't want. Yep. But you can also say, I do know what I want. Like the first time around, you have no baseline. You have no idea what you're doing. You're both learning together, which can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing because you don't know how to deal with certain things. Like Will said earlier, now I'm not going in like, what are we going to do? Hey, we have this problem. We have to figure out a plan. What are we going to do? Now I'm like, well, I've dealt with that before. I know exactly what to do. We could do this, this, and this. Now we can change it up to fit us. But we may want to start by doing this, this, and this. This is a way, like you said, a lot of problems you have in marriage are normal things. Yep. It's financial. You're dealing with family, dealing with stress, dealing with these types of things.
Cohabitation issues are like
Number
part of divorce.
Number one.
People
Really?
can't deal with people can't deal with people's
It's hard to
You
learn
can't
how to
live with
live
other
with somebody else.
You've never lived
Yeah.
with somebody else. That's a red flag for me. I'm like, hey, no. Like, we can't do
Yeah.
it.
Really?
See, we all got our things.
Yeah.
But it's like learning to live with somebody is difficult. I love my wife to death, but sometimes the fact that we have a king size bed and you got to sleep right up underneath me at times drives me crazy because I like my space. This is my side. I have drawn a line. Like, this is the middle of the bed. That's the place you're supposed to be over there. And this is where I exist. And if our uncle comes over, I'm mad. So now I'm like smacking arms, I'm kicking legs, I'm doing everything because I'm like, you have violated the line. You have come across the gun line almost. Like,
that is fact.
get over there.
The reason I got a king, the first purchase I made after my divorce, besides a house, was a king size bed. The first purchase, because I was like, I want my space. You learn that lesson, and I think someone made a really good point about society isn't trained to cohabitate anymore. I don't think we've ever been trained to cohabitate. We were always taught shacking up was wrong. You shouldn't live with a person before you get married. Don't try the cow before the milk before you buy the cow. We're told all these things that are actually kind of counterproductive sometimes, I think. Because I think cohabitation is critical because it's one thing to be around somebody, but to live in the same space, to share your sanctuary with another human being, and you don't know if they leave towels on the floor, how they cook it, how they wash dishes. You don't know if they're a neat freak or an obsessive compulsive person. You don't know any of those things until you do it in the same moment. You are learning a whole lot of things about that person at one time that can be overwhelming. It's like walking into a TJ Maxx and not knowing where to go.
Now, one thing
It's too much.
I saw on Wendy Williams, you know how she have asked the question is like to the audience, and the one guy asked, he was like, you know what, I've been married for 10 years, but my wife will not move in with me. And I'm like, what the hell is that? So they have separate homes.
Yeah, I guess.
They have separate homes, and they literally spend the night over each other's house. And he was like, but I want to live with my wife. And, you know, she was there. She was like, no, what we do is fine. I love how we do, and we're good. If you don't want to, if you want me to live with you, that's too bad. But I almost feel like I'm okay with that. Because
I have joked about his and her houses before, but I
you
couldn't
just
imagine.
need his and her sinks and a bathroom door that closes. That's all you really need.
No, I know there are people like that too, though, Michelle. Like, there's his and her houses. There's people that will have houses next door to each other, or they just never moved out of their other houses, but they're married.
Yeah.
And I think that is interesting, but you still have to learn how to deal with those types of issues when you're married. Otherwise, you don't get married. You don't have to get married.
Also
but
true.
then if you do, I mean, I guess it's to each his own.
Well,
But
it's funny because if you ever do like some sort of like government form, it'll say married and living separately is a box. Even on your taxes, it's a box.
Yep.
it's become normal now. It's become a thing.
Well, but I think that's when you think of people who are like bi-coastal or like you have
Military.
military. Some people who are like their profession takes them out of state all the time. Like I know people who are in that space, but they still at some point have cohabitated together. It may not be on the regular basis, but they still live together in some kind of space. And I think,
And I'm sure it's not weird for them to like look up and the person's still in the house.
right? What are you doing?
Why are you here?
Go next door to your house. Leave me alone.
That's home, Negro.
I'll say this too though. My former pastor used to always say marriage is the greatest institution for growth. because it grows you up in so many ways. And I think that the problem with our society is nobody wants to like do anything to grow up. It's just like
People don't want to grow up. They're fighting it tooth and nail.
Yeah, or you want to get stronger, but you don't want to be sore. You don't
You don't want the pain points, but you need that to grow. That's good growth.
Exactly. So, and it's interesting because even if you have a roommate, just a roommate, like that it really will give you some idea of cohabitating when you're married, because you're not thinking to yourself like, because my wife had really never really had anyone live in the house for her. And it was interesting because she would be getting up like before we go to bed, like checking all the doors, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you checking the doors? That's
things locked up.
Force a habit, right?
My job. You know what I'm saying? But it only been her. You know what I'm saying? And it's interesting because like those types of things to work through make you so much better as a couple. Like it solves a lot of other problems too, because you got to learn how to trust the other person.
And address issues so they don't fester, like you,
Part
because they're
4
right in
drops
front of you.
Monday.
Like
Stay
you can't.
tuned.
Like I think it's a little easier if you're long distance for you to be able to be okay. I don't have to deal with that. We don't have to have these critical conversations. But if I'm sharing a bed with you, we getting up brushing our teeth in the morning every morning. We see each other on the way home. We eating dinner together. Like we gotta talk about the elephant in the room.
Yep.
Because there's no way for us to get through that without having those discussions. And I agree. I think cohabitation really allows for that. And I think it is a way it grows you up. It is a learning curve. And I think it's harder to do when you're doing it for the first time and you have other complications, like you have kids or you have other things that actually all have to merge together at one time too. And that makes it, I think, can be challenging for people. And that gets tricky too, because it's nice. I think, we were talking earlier about getting married younger. I think that is one of the benefits of that. You can live in those spaces unencumbered. Yep. But as you are older, those things are typically come with the territory. There's always going to be potentially some co-parenting situation. Yep. There's potentially family issues, but we're at an age where we have to start, become caregivers for not just kids, but for our parents. You have other things that are potentially going to contribute to your cohabitation, and that can be challenging if you're not equipped to deal with stress or really work together in that space. So new marriages, that can be a strain. And
I even say this because Michelle's the only one on the call who hasn't been married. Michelle, you believe it or not, one of the biggest arguments you're going to have the day you get married is when you move into the place, the physical location, what furniture is going to be where.
Who's keeping, what we going, what's going away.
Who's keeping what and what's going to go. That is a big deal when you're grown. Because it's your
Why?
I just changed
it's a merging of lifestyles and practice, right? Like I think that's why.
I mean, wouldn't it just be like a logical answer? Whoever furniture looks the best?
They didn't have a couch.
That's based on your opinion. Because if that person had that furniture, they probably thought it was the best. And if you have your furniture, you probably think it's the best. Me, I just
you can say, all right, with this house that we have got together, which furniture either fits or looks the best in this room? Like, how is that a difficult?
But that was also up in the assumption y'all agree on that. You might have different styles, you might have different design preferences, you might like different things.
And you learn that nothing is that simple.
Be okay with that bed, Michelle. The bed you got right now, without them little. Yeah. You think your husband gonna be okay with that bed?
You gonna have to be better with it.
See, and that's why. Never mind. But
first of all, everybody loves a bling. What person do you know that don't like a bling in their life? Everybody needs bling in their life.
Let's get rid of everything.
Do y'all see this?
Bro,
one quote that I heard that I feel like it is absolutely true. They said marriage is designed to dissolve selfishness.
Yes.
So I definitely agree with that.
Yes.
But they're going to get these diamonds on that ass. I tell you that.
Keep it simple, man. Keep it simple. Sell your stuff. Sell your stuff and just buy new stuff together.
Buy new stuff together.
And keep it simple.
The same is true for people who are on their second marriage. So for those of us who have gone through marriage before and you were like, hey, when I started dating somebody new, I was like, purge it all. I got rid of I kept two things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
2 things. And they were things that were so neutral that it didn't matter. But you get rid of everything else and you just start afresh.
Well, we have more than one room. So if we have more than one room, then this bed can be in the guest room. And we can get a separate suite.
Not if you just smash tail on it. I don't want that bed in my house.
Right. Right.
Why would you throw me into this?
Just an example.
You telling me?
But that's the truth, though. My wife told me that. She was like, "You're really not bringing it there, right?"
Your old furniture has history.
No, that's true. But first of all, this bed is a bed of purity. The diamond equals purity. This bed is a bed of purity.
It's
no,
purity bed.
There has been some impure things happening.
Some impure things, impure thoughts, all things bad. That's not
exactly.
My wife told me into the guest room, so they can have that. Like, I mean, of course, you get a new bed.
You know what it is, though? I think this proves a point that I think a lot of people's identity is often wrapped up in their possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for people who are merging lives, it's hard to let go of the self that you have built by yourself.
True.
So to Michelle's point, marriage does help with selflessness. It helps you build as a unit. And I think part of that means getting a new bed, getting some new dishes.
So you telling me this brand new sparkling bed, I can't put it in the guest room?
Some new stuff.
It's a new life. You're building a new life. No, you're building a new life.
And hopefully in a whole new space.
Exactly.
That's why
So
they
just let it
that's why
go.
they say don't move into the
Part
other
4
person's
drops
house.
Monday. Stay
That's
tuned.
exactly why, because they said that
Well, yeah.
you tend to be more territorial when someone comes into
Move
your
into
space.
your space. Yep.
Absolutely.
You're moving into their world, into their life. So it makes it difficult for you to build a life together.
Yes.
So just if you're really ready to get married, you have to be ready to let go of everything that was behind you.
Yeah.
Like you gotta let go of your past in order to build this new future. So that means that old furniture, sometimes your old clothes, like she said, your old dishes, some old stuff, because you don't know the attachment that it had to your old
Gave
life,
it
your
to you,
old
where it
partner,
came
old
from,
date.
or any of those things.
The only way I can understand clothes is if it's like it's your old, like your whole clothes. But like just regular jeans and t-shirts.
Wait a minute
I
now.
get rid of them.
Who got whole clothes?
Everybody got a freaking dress. I mean, no, I'm not like.
You
if you want me to
should
get rid of
be
that,
freaking dress could be for your husband. Like I don't know what we're talking about.
No,
That's the one thing I kept.
like, sometimes it'd be like,
I took that with me into my marriage. Liquor.
sometimes it'd be like, who got you that shirt? Who got you that jacket?
Exactly.
Right.
And
Or
like,
I have a job. I bought me that
attached to those
shirt.
things, but that applies to jewelry.
True.
It applies to, like, there are so many things that you are gifted in the course of especially if it's a long-term relationship before you got married to somebody else. Like, that's a lot of history.
So question:
Well,
Have
Part 4 drops Monday.
you
Stay
had
tuned.
questions like that before in your marriage? Like, oh, I like that watch. Who bought you the watch? Like, why
It's not
couldn't you
even
buy-
that always. It's sometimes your mentality. What did you do in those clothes? You may have bought those clothes, but you
Okay.
may go and put on a certain shirt and be like, oh, I remember when I was wearing this
or
and so
did that. Yep.
See, no, that's
So
what
it's
y'all
like
do.
it's
That's how y'all
connected
mess
to an
up.
old
I
life.
didn't tell on myself. What? No.
Dude, I ain't say tell it. It's in your
I
head.
think what
And it
Michelle's
affects
saying
your
is
marriage.
Michelle's
So,
not
look,
ready.
Michelle, let me ask you a
She's
question.
not ready for marriage.
Let me ask you a question. So you marry your dude, and he has a king size bed too.
Okay.
He wants to bring the bed in your new place. You not gonna ask him if he
I'm going to say if you want to
What's
have
your
that
body
bed,
count on this
it can
bed?
be in the guest room. It's not going to be our bed. It can be the guest room.
are you gonna ask him is the question.
Ask him what he did in the bed.
Yes.
I don't have to ask him. I already know.
So what if he starts spending nights in that guest room?
Bring that new bed in y'all new house.
In the guest room, I don't care. But will it be our
What
bed?
were they
No.
giving you? What was your sage and we got sage and holy water? We got.
Well, I mean, like, if you first of all, if you newly married, I'm not
that juju.
If anything, if I don't do nothing else, I know how to budget, and I'm not finna be spending a whole bunch of extra money on some shit that we already got.
I agree with changing
Part
the
4
mattress.
drops Monday.
Somebody said
Stay
that change the
tuned.
mattress. You definitely need a mattress.
mattress.
Mainly just because you should be changing your mattress out regularly.
You should do
anyway,
that.
But there's
Yeah.
that.
Right.
But
That should just be a common
first,
practice.
people.
Look, the bed ain't got nothing to do with
People
that.
that were in the mattress industry.
Whatever, then I might have some issues because I want to raggedy furniture, but no, I'm not tripping.
I will
From
say
two
though,
people that
Michelle,
were in the mattress industry, change your mattress regularly. It's people that had mattresses passed down.
they can.
I was
they
at
can
my parents'
expire.
house. I said, ain't this the same mattress when I was a kid? I peed on this bed.
It ain't
Like,
pillow
why
talk
do you
anymore.
still
Do
have
you
it?
know what's on that mattress?
Exactly. I was a child in this bed.
It's the same bed as I was 8 years old.
No, that's a tragedy.
Oh God.
But Michelle, for you,
Oh, Lord.
there's also just an element of just for consideration because I know you're like I'm keeping my stuff. There's a fun element when you're building a life with somebody of doing those things together, mattress shopping, buying furniture together. That's actually one of the the fun positives early on in your marriage, I think.
True.
Fine, it can be the thing that makes or break a lot of people, but it's like
True.
searching for a house, searching for furniture, understanding your styles, finding something that meets you both, and that actually represents where you are in your union. That is really it's positive and fun.
Yeah.
So don't count it out because you're trying to hold on to your old bed.
But no, I'm not against like getting new stuff. I'm just saying, like when you first get in marriage, you don't want to incur a debt as soon as you get married, and like buying a whole bunch of new stuff just for GP just because.
When you get this age, Michelle, if you got somebody that is on your same level financially or higher,
Right.
So typically you want to go lower, right? But
Of
if
course
he's
not.
Because then you can
where
have
you
nice
are
things.
or higher, he's gonna be like, let's get all new stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Also, just for the sheer fact that you don't want to have to move shit. The great thing about new stuff is it gets delivered.
Yeah, that's true.
Not moving again.
That is a part of the reason why I do what I do. Like, we're talking about moving and stuff now. And I'm like, look, matter of fact, I can show you this room. This room's already been cleared out. But I'm like, we start selling stuff off because I'm not moving a whole bunch of stuff. From my old house, I brought forward this desk because I like my desk.
That's it.
And that was it. Everything else is new. Even before we moved in the house together, and like I was here kind of setting things up, she was like, "Ooh, I found this furniture. I really like it." I'm like, "Oh, I like it too. I just went and picked it up."
Right.
Like, and then she got here and she was like, "Oh my God, you got the furniture." I did. Like, we're building a new life and we're building it together. Yep. She looked forward to it. She was like, "I've always looked forward to going furniture shopping with my husband."
Right.
And now we're doing that. We're not just moving a whole bunch of stuff from our old lives into our new lives. Right. We're starting a new life together.
So I'm a bit different. So my wife is like all fancy. I'm country as hell apparently when it comes to like stuff like this. So I had never bought. Like,
don't tell me you have wicker furniture.
No. I had never bought brand new furniture.
All the plastic still on
his. What makes you country?
None of that. Like I never. So I'd never been furniture shopping before. Or nothing. So like, so when we got this house, like it was like $10,000 worth of furniture, and I'm like, whoa, like I ain't never seen it like this before. Like they bring the couch to the house, nigga, you know. So
what? You excited about a couch? Nigga, what you see a love feet? You really gonna blow your mind, ain't it?
I mean, oh my God.
That's
have you heard of Chase Line?
You guys did together, right?
Look, I never
do you know I got these things called mouse
right?
TV?
Well, like y'all work towards that.
I'm the dude that'll let the chick bring in all her crap. I would be like,
don't
do that.
I don't want to bring it
because I'm cheap.
I don't want to bring any of my stuff.
Yeah, but now,
well, exactly, I'm cheap too, so that's what I'm like, nigga, I ain't buying no new shit.
Y'all, we gotta get ready to write this thing up.
So maybe that's just me.
Yeah,
my computer's not on. I have no idea what time it is, but I know we've been doing this for a while now.
It's 10:09.
Okay, so we're clearly at an hour. What'd you say? We are definitely at an hour.
Michelle's keeping it real, FYI. So
keeping the gifts from her previous boyfriend. She gonna have all the dishes from everybody, whatever. Like she gonna have all the.
But they won't know.
All kissable lips, dishes and crap in the house.
But they're not gonna know.
They're gonna have a ex-boyfriend man cave. She's gonna have a dedicated man space to all this stuff.
They will not know. They will not know. The only thing they're gonna know is my products. But anything else that was a gift, they ain't gonna know. I ain't tell them.
Okay.
You're starting off bad. Okay, I'm Arthur Ron Walker. This has been another episode of Opposing Perspectives. Michelle, tell them who you are.
Michelle C. of Kandid Kisses TV. Please follow the podcast. It's Kandid Kisses TV on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Anchor, Spotify, all things streaming.
Will
Jordan. You can follow me Renaissance Will 404 on IG. Podcast coming soon.
Elsie.
I am LaShondra. I'm one half of the Grown Ass Dating podcast. You can follow us at grownassdating.com or Grown Ass Dating on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Please subscribe.
And again, Arthur Ron Walker. Please go follow the YouTube. Should have a new motivational video on there. Gonna try to upload one every Sunday or Monday, something like that. But we're getting where we're going. Again, thank you, everybody. Wonderful talk. Great having you guys on again. So let's just keep on growing, keep moving forward. To everybody else, thank you for tuning in, and y'all have a good night.